am mainly interested in anything email creative. I'm a creative director and I oversee an agency at Yes Marketing. And so what we're going to do today is just talk about some before and after creative makeovers. So just a quick show of hands, who controls email layouts or design, content, process, coding? Okay, so this might be useful to you. I'm just going to kind of quickly go through what we changed, some of the things we learned, and maybe it can be helpful to you if this is a topic that you have to go through. With the time, we're going to, again, breeze through in kind of a rapid order of our email overhaul for Marriott and Olive Garden, Choice Hotels, and others. We're lucky enough to work on these large brands, and they're very large email programs. So hopefully we can show you some of that. Now, first of all, thank you again to Mediapost, an amazing event. Such a great place to be, Deer Valley. I mean, incredible. I absolutely love this place. Another show of hands. How many snowboarders in the room? Okay, a couple snowboarders. I apologize. They still don't allow snowboarding here. Have you ever heard this one? What's the difference between a snowboarder and a vacuum cleaner? How the dirt bag is attached? No? All right, save that one. That's a good one. Anyway, thanks again. It's a great conference. Too bad it's such a dump. So I have been in email a long time. I don't know. I was talking to old friends. I don't know how I've been doing this for so long, but I actually started in email in the year 2000. And my colleague here from Portland, Matt Hickman, and I were part of a company called At Once. At Once was an early ESP, and we were lucky enough to get a company called Nike as our first client. And then we were lucky enough to do early email marketing for Nintendo, Warner Brothers, and others. And around 2006, we were purchased by Infogroup and combined with YesMail. So that's kind of who we are. That's a photo of me on my first day of work, not at work, where I was dressed as a bee. And the drummer in the house band that was playing had drank too much or smoked too much, or I don't even want to know. It was like a doctor on the plane. Does anyone play the drums? I was like, I do. All right, put the bee on the set. So that was my first day of work and a memorable day for me. So I've actually been with the company just this year for 19 years, which, again, 2 companies. So just real quick, a little bit about us. Yes Marketing, formerly known as YesMail. YesMail is our ESP, but we do a lot more than just ESP work. Yes Marketing is technology, services, and data to really help our clients. In particular, the group that I run is the agency. So we're about 20-ish designers and copywriters. We have an office in Chicago and New York and then out in the West. And again, we largely focus on email creative. These are some of the clients who we help on a day-to-day basis. So we not only create their email template systems, we create all their email for them and do all the campaign services that go with it. So we're really lucky to work with these companies. And in terms of our particular products, this is what we do best. Again, email template systems and the campaigns that come with them, but then really anything that touches email. So the ads, the social, landing pages, and other. We are owned by Infogroup. Is Lori still here? Lori Colantano? No, perhaps not. Lori works for Infogroup. She was sitting out here at the table today. Infogroup is a large data provider, so consumer, business, and all the services that go with data. We're very excited about our most recent product, which is called Data Axle, which allows even people like me to go in and use the tools to get access to data and see, that's interesting. By putting that in, I can actually get it, get interesting data and results back. So Infogroup. Okay, so I'm going to go through this relatively quickly. Again, if you have any questions, I'd love to hear them. But we're going to look at what we did before and after with creative makeovers. Now, before we start, just a little bit about template systems. So, email template systems are a bedrock for how we work, and they're really just a single HTML document. They're a series of stacked modules, And what we do, even though all of the designers on my team went to art school and they're not developers, what we do is we create email template systems, and they're a series of stacked modules where you can duplicate, delete, and reorder the modules based on the email content that you're making at the time. So it's a way that we work, which we call design into code. So even though all of our designers went to art school, they're not developers, we actually create new email directly in code, which means we're picking and choosing different modules to create long scrolling newsletters or short postcards. And that really is the basis for how we work. So when we come into a company who wants to modernize their email, we start with the template system. Templates to us does not mean the same thing over and over again. The way we use templates, we actually require our staff to never do the same thing twice, meaning we can always push and pull that code to get fresh, unique layouts. So email template systems are really what we're going to be talking about here with these different makeovers. So since 2013, we've been lucky enough to help Marriott with their email marketing. We came in and overhauled the look and feel of their program, and it is a large, complex program. Marriott is an absolutely great client to work with, very organized, very efficient, and their email channel is astoundingly successful. So in 2013, we did we've actually done 3 different overhauls with this entire program. And this is what it looked like before. So it had a very dominant header at the top, as you can see here. I just want to use the pointer because I've got a pointer. But a very dominant header at the top that had different user merges in it. So especially for the most common or their highest reward audience, they would see their current balance, for example, make sure that their recent stays were shown in there. But it definitely got in the way. That is even though that thing works very well, that status bar and the search, by the way, that search, see that? Search Marriott Rewards, we tested into that. As a graphic designer, I was like, we cannot put that in there. And it won the test, and so we had to put that in the search bar. But anyway, this is what it looked like before. Decent layout, still responsive, but what we were going through with the Bonvoy redesign was to make sure we're bringing through that new brand. I learned a lot by watching Marriott and Starwood merge, just sort of on the sides and what they did. But we had basically about 6 months from the time we learned about the word Bonvoy and the colors and the brand to redesigning and getting the entire email program updated by their deadline. So it was a pretty rapid evolution. So this isn't much to look at, but this is the template that drives all Marriott, Bonvoy creative today. So on the left, you can see that tower of a layout, but really what the template system is a wide variety of different features. If you look at the top here, this is our workhorse. How we organize our features and how they look, whether it's one or if we stack 10 of those in a single layout, that is what we use a lot. And then the other thing you'll notice is this. I know the theme of this weekend has been relevancy and information related to our audience. This is Marriott's status bar. These have become pretty common if you have the data. But this thing performs so well that they have to actually, there's in our campaign build sheets with status bar without as a checkbox because it performs so well. Sometimes we have to take it out. This thing will really cannibalize all the clicks in a given layout. But anyway, this is what it looked like after. So more of a minimal header. As I showed you previously, there was a status bar, kind of a tall header. We decoupled that so we can get more of the layout up. And we even do one of our layouts where we put that status bar right on the image. And it's all made of code, again, for monthly updates. All right, so that's a little bit of what it looked like after. So what did we do? Again, we had this very dominant header. We decoupled it. We looked at what people were clicking on the most, which was the logo, my account, find and reserve. And we said, okay, let's take everything else away. And then skipping forward, we took that status bar and we put it always as the second module in our layout. And again, as I mentioned earlier, it performs better than most anything in their email. And that's because it's showing users, especially those that are elite, platinum, what their current points are at. And then we also decoupled that search bar and put it further down in the layout as well. On some of these features, what we do is, as many of you know, it's not totally easy to have words made of code, not images, buttons made of code, not images, and have it be floating over an image. Okay? On the modern web, that's easy. But in the inbox HTML that we have to deal with, as many of you know, it's not. So what we were able to do there, again, through a hack that makes it look good on Outlook and Gmail and others, is again, that feature module where we're having that float above it. In addition to that, we also were able to equip our designers to be able to change the background so that they could have a different image for mobile, which freed us up a lot because they're always kind of doing a dance for how it looks on the small screen, and now they could just say, okay, desktop and mobile, and move forward. Another thing that we learned from Pinterest, frankly, is background color blocking. So remember, when your email comes into the inbox, you see who it's from, you see the sender, the pre-header, etc. There is a moment of time while that is loading in there. And again, if your email is made of all images and it's loading and you can't see anything, you give it 2-3 seconds, delete. With us, since we're always making sure our layouts are readable and clickable with images off, we actually have a little script that just looks at the picture and takes a hex color and puts it behind it. Again, just like Pinterest, if you've ever been there, it's kind of loading in. You have that background color blocking, and we've actually done that across the board. And then other smaller things like CSS mouse effects, mouse overs, add a little bit more interactivity. And then one of the things for us is when we did the first Marriott template, we had our sort of fixed mobile width, and then more and more phones came out. We changed up our code, which we call responsive 2.0, which allows our code to go wall to wall. So that was a big thing we brought in. One other thing, if you're ever doing a redesign, these little things called stretchy bands, which we call scroll interrupters, are a great way to add little tips, really to change the layout, especially for long layouts. And then I just want to pause one sec. So when we overhaul a template system, it's pretty easy to get started and create new email. But as many of you know, there's a large backlog of triggers that probably exist, and Marriott had literally hundreds of triggers. When we go through and do a template redesign, we have our new template system. We get that done, we get day-to-day publishing in order, but then we have a sort of separate methodology for updating our triggers. And I just threw this in here because I know there's many people who oversee these types of campaigns. And our approach for triggers is we, get every single trigger up on a single web page. So let's make sure the entire team or client, everyone can see the current trigger, what it looks like. We can get a direct URL to it. But then number two, what has been extremely helpful for us with Marriott in particular is frequently used content. Unfortunately for us, FUC has a very tough abbreviation, and I see it a lot in our email threads. We should have named it frequently used gallery, for example. But anyway, the FUC exists to this day. What it is, as many of you might have, you say a lot of the same thing over and over again in brand marketing. And so what we have done is really just basically said, we're going to put it once on a web gallery, and we can reuse it over and over again. And that sped our trigger overhauls up a lot. We weren't rewriting everything. And then, frankly, an icon library to go with it. So here's an example of that frequently used content and those icons. Okay, so how did it perform? The triggers performed very well. I mean, the one thing that's great about the business that I am in is that redesigns work. When you redesign, you should be doing it at least every 2 years, but I'd say every 9 months you need to start getting ready for a redesign, because changing your layouts, even though it's, we got to test it, we got to make sure it doesn't perform worse. In my experience, it almost always performs better. So we were lucky enough to see a lot of good results when we overhauled. All right, moving on, just going to touch on Olive Garden. We started working with Olive Garden about 5 years ago. This is what it looked like before. I love coming in when layouts need a lot of work because it makes us look great. And this is a layout that needs a lot of work. That brown color it's a really interesting color to put with food. So we were able to come in and say, we're going to get rid of that brown. We wanted an updated look. We really wanted to elevate the food. And so this is what Olive Garden looks like today. And again, it uses a template system, and it practices what we call never the same thing twice. So we're always keeping it changing and fresh and unique. And again, our main goal was really to simplify it, to clean it up, and show off the food, craveable food. So again, like the Marriott layouts, minimalism to us is a big thing. So a very clean, simple header. We reduced a lot of the things that people weren't clicking on. We hide our pre-header. We like to keep everything as minimal as possible. And then with Olive Garden, even though we had a lot of resistance going in doing this, we brought in a play that we call sticky content, where we actually have a copy and content director who works on site at Darden. But what she does is she makes these bite-sized little, almost social-like, snackable content pieces. She does it in 3-month intervals and makes them before the email is even started, based, looking at an email calendar. But sticky content is basically, it's like a little Hershey's Kiss at the bottom of an email. And the whole reason why we do it is we put sticky content in email really to train users to open. So we know people are at work, they're busy, they're on Excel, whatever. Oh, something came in from Olive Garden, they entertained me last time. I know it's going to be short and quick, I'll take a look. So not only did we redesign the layouts, we also were able to add bite-sized little pieces of content to keep people opening. And then also with them, we've done a lot of interactive emails like carousels and this one. If you're a real email geek, I guess it won't work. But parallax scrolling, where we have an object stay in one place and the layout behind it moves. The hamburger menu and others. We do a heck of a lot of GIFs. Email marketer designers are really now probably spending more time animating than they are designing, because quite frankly, when we see it, it works. Adding motion and GIFs to layouts, when we test them side by side, we'll actually see a slight increase with those that use it. Olive Garden also had Save to Phone. They used Vibes mobile wallet. In the past, they said, print this out or show it to your server. Their Save to Phone adoption was probably I think it's still to this day probably Vibe's best implementation and most used in terms of their audience. But allowing coupons to be added to the phones is key. So overall, how it performed, the one thing about Olive Garden that I would say is when we were brought in, their open rates had descended below 16%, and they basically said, like, if we break this threshold, we're going to make a change. We were lucky enough to come in and help them with that. Today, their open rates in the mid-20s, and it actually went up. So ascending open rate was over a year's time based on our redesign. But really, I believe that sticky content is one of the reasons why that went up. So we were lucky enough to see a lot of good results from Olive Garden's redesign. Okay, just a few more. So Marriott isn't the only hotel that we work for. We also service Choice Hotels. If you've ever taken a road trip, you've seen one of these signs. You've probably stayed there. Choice Hotels based in Maryland as well. When we came in, they had an in-house team. In-house email or creative teams in general are great because they're efficient and affordable, but they tend to, in my experience, to kind of lack innovation. And so a wide variety of their layouts were just kind of done one-off, done really with kind of a print-based look and feel, a lot of what we call wallow text in there, which are big blocks of copy, things that we try to eliminate. So with Choice Hotels, we really just like the other two, we wanted to modernize and update their look and feel. So this is what it looked like after. Again, adding more white space to me is really the easiest way to make layouts look better, but better typography, etc. One of the things we learned with Choice Hotels, again, focusing on the header, is this. The responsive header, we tested into this, but you can see like even the logo, for example, changes when it goes to the small screen. We're basically showing only the most important things in the mobile view. So we greet the person, we show them their points, we make sure that search bar is in there. As you notice, it goes from a large search bar to a smaller one. Working on that header was a really interesting test plan, but something that really has changed the way we look at how the top of emails look. They too have a status bar that is in their monthly newsletter for their elite users, and it too, of course, was responsive as well. All right, so those are some of the different looks from Choice Hotels. So overall, it performed well. Again, change your layout and enjoy a slight performance boost in the short term, but really updating it, getting a more consistent look and feel will drive a much better program. All right, just a couple more. So Spartan race. Has anyone here run a Spartan race? Any? So Spartan is one of these races where you do stuff like this. I'm not a Spartan racer. But mud and fire, whatever. So before Spartan looked a little text heavy, they have a brand that relies on the color black, which can be kind of a challenge in the inbox overall. So we wanted to keep that dark brand palette, but we really did want to lighten it up, improve the type and others. So this is what it looked like after. And with them, what was neat is using data and personalization is that if you're a Spartan racer, we had a variety of almost sort of Strava-like inputs on them, their last race, gamification elements. And so we were able to blend those into all their emails, effectively make small modules that use data based on whether or not they raced recently, how they performed. So a lot of the same innovations that we did before, like selectable text over imagery, and again, things like this, showing goals, fitness goals, and things that they've done recently. One thing that was neat about this is that one of our designers, a guy named Scott Sider in Seattle, was talking about is he said, look, we've all got big monitors. We're also focused on mobile views. What about desktop views? And so one thing that was cool about this is that Scott, when he was working on this, optimized the desktop view. So what I mean is, if you open this in Gmail, for example, and you're on a large monitor, and you have the space, the feature image, which is also a background image, will scale up to 1,000 pixels. So you don't have sort of that open space on either side. Again, email geekery, it's not a big deal, but it does optimize the desktop view by giving you a really dominant large image. So that was one thing we learned from that, and that we do quite a bit. It too uses the status bar. Again, merging in user data, increasing personalization. So overall, again, we saw a really rapid change in this email program, in particular with their revenue. We emailed more targeted, and then, of course, we increased the amount of users on their list. So Spartan performed well. That same designer, great designer, Scott Sider, also assisted us when we worked on Bed Bath & Beyond. This was another great example of you love the low-hanging fruit. I mean, their layouts were interesting, let's put it that way. So they were all image-based. They had so much different type going on and things just happening in general. We knew right away we were going to be able to make a big difference. So again, like a lot of our layouts, we calmed things down. Much more white space, much more interesting typography, and we also added a content plan to that as well. So Bed Bath & Beyond, again, the similar themes that we've talked about over and over, cleaning up the header, making things a lot more simple and easy to read. Web type for us has been huge, so frankly, Google Fonts or hosting our own fonts is such a great way to make your emails look better, not just, again, relying on that sort of base Arial. And maps. One of the big things we learned with Marriott and we've taken through to Olive Garden and others is putting maps, location information in the footer has been extremely useful for our clients. I'm going to kind of skip through this for the sake of time. So overall, Bed Bath has moved to using this templated approach. They also have moved to the same methodology that we use, again, creating new emails directly into code. And then the last one of these, I'm just going to go through quickly, is PayPal. We work with this amazing person, Kathy Montgomery, at eBay and PayPal. Kathy brought us in when they wanted to change and update their layouts. They about 4 years ago, they updated with their new brand. And they have a huge transactional ecosystem, a lot of emails going out at any given moment. But they are all very utilitarian. They put their new logo on their layouts, but they wanted to kind of bring that through. So this was about a 9-month project where we looked at everything they did, and this is what we came through afterwards. And even now, to this day, when I get an email from PayPal, it makes me happy. Again, making it look easy to read, scannable, simple, clear. It is an extremely complex email program, so it could come from PayPal or any number of their clients. So we designed a multi-header system. And again, reining in that typography. The grid system on this particular layout was probably one of the more complex grid systems that we've ever used for alignment. So subtle, clean, keeping it simple. And yeah, so one of the cool things, just to finish up about PayPal, was their subtle use of gradients. You know, thanks to Instagram, we see gradients, color gradients, you know, all over quite a bit. We designed a way to put gradients in using just pure code as opposed to loading images, and then had a flat color fallback. So, you know, in summary, the things that we went through here, if I could summarize kind of our top 10, is we really do believe in template systems. We love minimalism and just reducing clutter. Of course, the layouts have to be responsive. And then adding content. Content is like the fertilizer for these email programs. It's what keeps people opening. It's the hardest thing to do, but it has to be there in a consistent fashion. Web fonts, these user status bars, mouse over effects, that under image color blocking. Only an email geek could get excited about under image color blocking. But really challenging our teams to do new layouts using a template. That's probably one of the ways that we use it best. So hopefully you had something that can help with perhaps your next redesign. If you're interested, we do have our lookbooks, which showcase some of our work, and we're always open to give free email audits to any Email Insider participant, which means basically show us a handful of your email layouts, and we'll sort of put it through our scorecard and suggest ways that it could be improved. So thank you very much to Mediapost. Sorry for going over. And great to see you all. Thanks again.